In 1880, a 60-year-old woman, Marianne Evans, was on honeymoon in Venice with her 40-year-old husband. This was the final scandal in the extraordinary life of Marianne Evans, which shocked and fascinated Victorian society. In her lifetime, she was known by 5 different names. Today, we know her as one of the greatest writers in our history.
Of course, some said that her new husband might have preferred a night in the canal to a night with his ancient new bride.
They say that her love of music is only matched by her appetites in the boudoir, and she listens to music several times a day.
When someone is born in the country, they necessarily have the hungers of the farmyard.
This is Marianne Evans, when she was 40 years old, a fearless woman who broke the rules of Victorian life. But under her pen name, George Eliot, she is a giant in our literary history. Middlemarch, The Mill on the Floss, and Adam Bede draw us into her world and into her mind. And yet, as a woman, she was a bit of a mystery. She was a great believer in the sanctity of family life and the loyalty of friends, but for years was an outcast from both. She treasured quiet intimacies, and yet she created scandal after scandal. This pattern of her life is mirrored in the pages of her novels. George Eliot shared a birth date, 1819, with another famous Victorian, the Queen herself. But their lives could not have been more different. Queen Victoria set the rules. George Eliot broke them. Her heroines in Middlemarch and Daniel Deronda are strong-willed and compassionate. In Silas Marner and The Mill on the Floss, people struggle hard to do the right thing. Readers could see their own lives and problems in the pages of a novel. George Eliot, the social outcast, became the celebrated chronicler of her times. Even Queen Victoria treasured her autograph. The woman who became George Eliot began life in Warwickshire as plain Mary Ann Evans. She loved her sister and mother, but her brother and father dominated her life. Her father doted on his youngest child, but he knew that she'd have to get by on her cleverness, not her looks.
I was a very pious young woman, always tried to be the best at everything. The cleverest girl at school, the most loyal friend, the most hard-working parishioner, the most devout of all believers. Perhaps it was all to gain my father's attention, his approval.
Of all her books, The Mill on the Floss is the one closest to Mary Ann's own life. It tells the story of clever, plain Maggie Tulliver.
You catch it, you will. Do it!
Her brother and her father, both God-fearing and unforgiving, rule the mill where they live. But Maggie's far too headstrong to be the perfect daughter forever.
Oh! You wicked girl! Oh! You'll break your mother's heart!
You were right to cut it off if it plagued you. Father will take your part.
But when Mary Ann rebelled, her God-fearing father definitely did not take her part. At the age of 22, she stopped going to church. These days, it's hard to imagine how shocking it was for a young girl to give up her faith. She was, in a way, marking herself out as sinful and dangerous. Stay away, do not touch. For her family and for her marriage prospects, this was a disaster. Mary Ann wanted and needed a husband as much as the next girl. She knew that the eligible bachelors of the parish would never want a godless wife, but she wouldn't relent.
I dread to think what will become of her.
It's our Christian duty to think about it, as a warning.
While most young women of her age were studying embroidery, she'd been studying foreign books and dangerous new ideas.
Misery, possibly madness.
Certainly fornication.
To her, the Anglican Church was intolerant and unforgiving. She felt she had no choice but to leave it, whatever the cost.
Licentiousness, deceit, greed.
Envy, unholy language.
Fornication.
Mary Ann's father was devastated. It must have seemed like she was damned in this world and the next.
And at the end of it all, hell, eternal damnation.
Women like Mary Ann were always financially dependent on men. If she wasn't going to find a husband, what would she do with her future?
Father, I would cheerfully brave anything to give you a moment's joy, but I cannot attend church. The scriptures mingle truth and fiction, and I cannot support their doctrines. Please, Father, speak. Do not condemn me with this ice. I fear nothing but voluntarily leaving you. If ever I loved you, I do so now. Father, please. Please.
Poor father, stuck with a great dollop like her. I shouldn't wonder he'll fall into an early grave with the worry.
Hungry for new ideas and stimulation, Mary Ann fled the nest. She came under the influence of Charles and Cara Bray, a bohemian couple who had an open marriage and mixed with writers and intellectuals. What would the good burghers of Warwickshire think? Mary Ann lapped it up. With astonishing ease, she taught herself modern languages, ancient languages, philosophy, theology, history.
Descartes. Il admet en effet que l'âme ou l'esprit est une...
Nothing was too difficult for her.
La glande dite pinéale.
No wonder Charles Bray was so intrigued by her.
Le moindre
He
goût
thought
de
she had the
l'esprit
skull of a genius. And she did. Mary Ann started translating The Life of Jesus, a dense work of theology. 1,500 pages of German, with quotations in Latin, Greek and Hebrew, questioning the truth of the Gospels themselves. You can imagine how her father must have felt. When The Life of Jesus was published, her reputation as a brilliant free thinker started to spread. For him, it must have marked her out to the world as a heretic. The Gospels were the foundation of all his beliefs, and here was his daughter questioning them. But Mary Ann longed to be reconciled to him. When he became ill, she rushed home to care for him. For 3 years, she was a devoted and uncomplaining nurse. But Robert Evans died, never having forgiven his daughter for their holy war.
When my father died, it was as if a part of my moral nature were about to pass away. What was I to be without him? I had a horrid vision of myself becoming sensual and devilish for want of his strong, restraining influence. The one deep, strong love I had ever known had found its fullest reward.
Of course, she'll never get a husband now.
Not as if she possessed qualities likely to ensnare one. Except her opinions and self-righteousness.
For all her genius, Mary Ann was very needy. She drifted through a string of hopeless relationships with wildly unsuitable or older married men. With such emotional turmoil, she couldn't focus on her writing.
It had always been a dream of mine that one day I would write a novel. But as the years went on, I began to lose hope. I'd constantly felt such a need for one person who would be everything to me, and to whom I would be everything. And always there was the difficulty of human relations, the problem of pleasing others while satisfying oneself, the sheer problem of how to live.
In 1849, Mary Ann moved to Geneva to fill the emotional and intellectual void in her life. She wrote to her friends, the Brays.
Of Monsieur d'Albert, I can say that the face is plain with small features and rather haggard-looking. You must know he's not more than 4 feet high with a deformed spine, but on his little body is placed a finely formed head.
Mary Ann rented a room from Monsieur d'Albert Durade and his wife. Typically, she confused her mind and her heart. Attracted by his artistic temperament, she quickly became infatuated. There's another similarity here with Maggie Tulliver. She falls in love with the hunchbacked Philip Wakeham because she's fascinated by his mind.
I remember how much you love books, Maggie. I shall bring you heaps of them.
I've given up books.
Don't deny yourself these things. Be that brilliant woman you are always destined to be. Full of fire and wit and imagination.
But there's a naivety to that doomed love, as there was to all Mary Ann's infatuations with unavailable men. Durade, of course, never intended to leave his wife, so Mary Ann was alone again.
It pleases, but it flatters.
Why were men attracted to Mary Ann in the first place? In reality, the best you can say is that she was plain. Here's how the American novelist Henry James tried to describe her appeal. Behold me literally in love with this great horse-faced blue-stocking. I don't know in what the charm lies, but it is thoroughly potent. But in this vast ugliness resides a most powerful beauty. Mary Ann, famous for her plainness, was fascinated by the power of female beauty. In her final novel, Daniel Deronda, people puzzle over the beauty of the intriguing Gwendolen Harleth.
By God, she's a beautiful girl.
Yes. I'm rather sorry we invited her.
Not to bring you Rex.
And why shouldn't she be?
Cousins, Rex. Never works. Besides, she needs to capture a fortune.
Mary Ann's intellect was dazzling, but she hadn't yet found a focus for her ambition. She finally came to London to stay at an infamous boarding house, popular with writers and intellectuals. It was owned by John Chapman, the handsome publisher of her book, The Life of Jesus. To make an impression, she decided to change Mary Ann to a more sophisticated name.
Let me introduce you all to our new guest, Miss Mary Ann Evans.
Marian. Miss Marian Evans.
Quite, Miss Mary Ann Evans.
No. I fear I've not made myself clear. It's Marian, one name, not Marianne, two names.
One little name, such a universe of difference. I feel sure Miss Marian Evans will be a splendid addition to our lively little band.
Chapman lived here with his wife and his mistress. He kept a candid diary in which he wrote a close account of his private life. Very private life. There were codes against his wife's name for when she was menstruating and when he'd had sex with her. And next to Marian's name were similar symbols. Chapman's wife and his mistress had established a sulky truce with each other, but they certainly weren't going to have a third woman around. They closed ranks against Marian. In a flurry of tears and tantrums, she returned to Warwickshire. Meanwhile, John Chapman bought the fading but internationally respected journal, The Westminster Review. He wanted to return it to its former glory, but he needed a first-class mind to help him. Without further ado, he set off for Warwickshire. Chapman needed an editor, not a lover, especially one he was not particularly attracted to.
It may well be, my dear, thank you, that we should consider the efficacy of our mutual excitements. A man's appetites are like the tide. They swell and foam and crash, then abate. And you may think I considered you little more than a plain diversion, a mere novelty, you may say. No, I say. You are a... But you see, my dear, there is an effect of female beauty that some women have and some women don't.
It is too cruel to think that only the body, the face, and witchery can spark mutual admiration and love. There is also the beauty of the mind, the cultivation of the soul.
Marianne was very hurt, but ambitious enough to accept Chapman's offer. But few men at that time would have agreed to write for a magazine edited by a woman, so they had to keep her role quiet. The magazine flourished, editing serious works on the arts, science, theology, and morality also gave her a chance to refine her own ideas. Later, she wrote about them in her free-thinking magazine articles about love and marriage.
Let the whole field of reality be laid open to women as well as to man. Then we shall have that marriage of minds which alone can blend all the hues of thought and feeling into one lovely rainbow of promise.
Marianne's triumph at the Westminster Review became an open secret. But she was still alone. Another infatuation was inevitable. Herbert Spencer was a groundbreaking writer and biologist. He, not Charles Darwin, coined the phrase survival of the fittest. Intellectually, they were a perfect match. But Spencer wanted more from a woman than just a good brain.
I fear you are angry with me.
Angry?